We're almost ending chapter 45.
All right, so any questions on any of the specifics within this section before we jump in?
I have one question.
Yes,
Third line down, the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth word in, noseim.
yeah, I left, there's an accent mark there that I didn't remove.
Okay, that's what I figured it was an accent saying noseim.
Yeah, nos,
But-
as opposed to nosim, it's nosim.
Noseim. Okay.
Noseem. Oh, okay, noseem. I have a question.
Yes,
It's in now I have to find it again. In verse 27, on the second line of that verse, the fifth word in, vayar.
right.
What is the aleph for?
The aleph is because the root of the word he saw is ro'eh. The root
Oh.
has an aleph in it.
Oh, okay.
So you say vayar because the aleph is there because it's part of the root word, but there's nothing. If it were in a different verb format, it might have been vayera or something like that, or vayera, could have been something else. But in this particular case, it's read as vayar, and the aleph was there because the Torah text had it because it's the root part of the root. All right, so
I have a question.
yes,
Actually, Kerry and I have a question. There's a word called tirgazu. You're not supposed to do it. It's on line 24,
Yep.
verse 24, the last word.
last word.
What does it
You're
mean?
not supposed to play the kazoo.
That's what we
So
thought.
you slide over and they say, do not be anxious.
Ah,
And you know that the al is the don't, the not.
Yeah.
So do not something, baderech in the road. So don't be ragazing.
don't worry, be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because of course,
Or
you're traveling the road and there are highwaymen and all sorts of bandits and wandering slave traders. And don't worry as you're traveling up.
don't play the
Finally-
kazoo in the road.
Right. Finally, he's finished spending an entire chapter telling his brothers what to say to his father when they go home, giving them the recording. And now he's getting ready to send them on their way. Verse 22. L'chulam natan la'ish chalifot smalot u'levinyamin natan shalosh me'ot kesef v'chamesh chalifot smalot. So l'chulam, to all of them, to each of them, to every one of them, however you want to translate kol am, all of them. Natan, he gave, la'ish, to the man, that is to each one of them, but the Hebrew just, he gave to the man. So he gave to each one of them, chalifot smalot, changes of clothing for their whatever 2 or 3 day journey, whatever it might be, going from Egypt back up to Canaan. And of course, we will note that for the 40 years that they wandered in the wilderness with Moses, they did not have a change of clothes. But for this short journey, he sends them each with a change of clothes. Ulevinyamin, and to Benjamin, Natan, he gave Shalosh Meot Kesef, 300 silvers. The Chamesh Chalifot Smalot, and 5 changes of clothing. I guess he thought his brother was a little bit more of a dirty guy. He's sending Linus and Charlie Brown and Lucy and everybody a change of clothes, but Pigpen needs 5 changes of clothes.
Oh, he just valued him more.
It's his favorite, second
You
favorite.
can read it however you want, which is always the case of Midrash to Torah. But yes, clearly 300 pieces of silver, and he did not give his brothers anything, as far as we know, as far as silver. And his brothers get a nice wardrobe of one change of clothes, and he gets an entire wardrobe that he has to schlep himself.
In the server.
It's
And all that silver.
Yes, and
it's
all that
interesting
silver.
they hadn't learned anything about sibling rivalry and psychology, even after his own being dumped away.
Right, after Joseph set himself up for all of that jealousy by his brothers, now he's going to
Right.
set his brother up for the same thing.
Yeah, didn't learn much.
Or he's really testing them to see if they really are willing to overcome their jealousies and petty differences and sibling rivalries. So depending on how you read Joseph and the whole interplay that's led up to this. Verse 23, Ula aviv shalach kazot asara chamorim nosim mituv Mitzrayim ve'eser atonot nosot bar valechem umazon la'aviv ladarech. La'aviv, and to his father, shalach kazot, he sent as this. So this is sort of the, he's giving them a listing of what's specifically of the things that they're being given that are for his father. And they are asara chamurim, 10 male asses, nosim, to carry. These are carrying asses. These are beasts of burden. So 10 male asses for carrying, mituv Mitzrayim, from the goodness of Egypt. So from the best of Egypt, he's sending them their best male asses, the eser atonot, and 10 she asses, nosaot, that are intended for carrying bar, valechem, umazon. They're intended for carrying provisions and bread and food.
The female asses have to carry everything.
Well, the male asses are the carry probably all of those changes of clothes and the silver and
Oh, okay.
Could you go over those words again? The
yes.
10 is Asher.
So
No,
10.
that's
So asara is, and numbers are very strange because the ones that look feminine are masculine and the ones that look masculine are feminine.
Where are you? Will you point out where you are?
So
Good line.
Okay.
asara chamorim. Chamorim are 10 male asses, and asara is 10, but
What's,
it's 10 male.
what's the difference between a donkey and an ass?
Nothing.
Not much, except for translation.
Okay.
So you could say 10 male donkeys and 10 female donkeys.
But where's the word male and female? Isn't that in the word donkey?
It is, exactly. Chamor is a male donkey, and aton is a female donkey.
But what is atot?
Atonot is
Atonot.
plural.
Atonot.
Right, aton. So they have a different word for donkeys depending on their age. I mean, their sex.
Oh,
So atonot is a female donkey? Or-
Right.
And the Esther is 10?
Esser is 10,
and
female.
But then what is the word nosot?
That's the bearing, the burden, the carrying.
Oh, carrying, okay.
If it's females, they're nosot. But if it's males, they're nosim.
Uh-huh.
And why don't you say nosim? Why do you go nosim?
Because of the shva. It's not nosim, but nosim. There's a shva and an aleph, which pauses
Nosot.
between the sin and the next vowel. And the same thing, nos ot, not nosot, but nos ot. Again, a shva with an aleph tells you have to pause between the two syllables.
Okay.
Then bar?
So we do that with some things. We call some animals a ewe and some animals a ram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we actually have a different word for a male dog and a female dog,
What are they?
a dog and a bitch.
Oh, I thought in Hebrew.
Oh, no. In Hebrew, dogs are not differentiated. There's kelev and kalba, but camels and donkeys and sheep and rams and goats, those all have identifying markers in their words. So it just depends on which ones you need to know the sex and which ones you don't need to know the sex.
I blocked Molly's ears on the word bitch.
So if you
Maggie's
need to know,
asleep.
you don't need to know what gender what sex your dog is, they'll take care of each other. Because you were not breeding them the same way you were breeding your fur and milk animals.
Oh, it,
Probably goes back to contract days when you made sure you were buying the right one. And bar is a generic term for provisions. Lechem is specifically bread. And mazon is a generic word for food.
But on the other side, you translated bar as grain.
Yeah, it's the provisions you need. That would be the grain that's used for making of other things.
mhm.
And we have different words, so we have to find different translations in English for them. And these are all la'aviv ladarech. These are specific, all of this stuff, 10 donkeys worth, is all for his father for his travels on the road. This is stuff for the old man.
When he's coming back to Egypt?
Exactly. This is stuff for him to have when he comes back down. Because remember, Joseph has said to his brothers, hurry and bring dad back down here.
Mhm.
So he's sending them not only the stuff they need for their travels up, but he's sending them 10, 20 donkeys worth of materials and provisions for dad specifically when he's coming back down. I guess dad's a big eater. 24. Vayeshalach et echav vayelechu vayomer alehem al tirgazu badarech. So vayeshalach et echav. So now he sent his brothers. Finally, he's finished talking. He's finished loading them up, and he sends them on their way. He sends them packing. Vayelechu, and they left, and they went. So he sent them, and they went. But as they're going out, he yells, Vayomer alehem, and he said to them, so he sends them, and they go, and then he's still talking to them. Al tirgazu badarech, don't be worried on the road. So I guess this is sort of a, remember, this is all, you're on a mission from God. 25. Vaya'alu mi Mitzrayim, and they went up, so, 25. Vaya'alu mi Mitzrayim, vayavo'u eretz Canaan, el Yaakov avihem. Vaya'alu mi Mitzrayim, they went up from Egypt. Vayavo'u eretz Canaan, and they came land of Canaan. El Yaakov avihem, to Yaakov their father. So we're going back and forth between Yisrael and Yaakov now in this text. And that causes problems for the rabbis, and that causes problems for the form critics. The problem for the rabbis is he's not supposed to be Yaakov ever again. He's supposed to be Yisrael, and then he's Yaakov, and then he's Yisrael, back and forth. And one of the rabbinic midrashic solutions to this is Yaakov when he's in his earthly secular realm, and he's Yisrael when he's in his heavenly holy realm,
Mm.
Of course.
which is not always satisfying because other commentaries come up with other things. If it was satisfying, they wouldn't have had to come up with other things. For form critics, it's a question of separate stories being combined. Who combines the Yaakov stories with the Yisrael stories? When is it done? Is it done in the root story by the Y author in, or is it separate Y documents that the editor redactor has to put together? Again, no solution is ever satisfying, because we don't have any recordings of the original texts before they were combined into their various forms, and they were combined at different times in different ways until they were ultimately combined. So we can only deal with whichever midrash you like that gets the message across. Enjoy it. Verse 26, they're home. In one verse, it's taken us 24 verses plus a chapter before us to get them ready to go home. In one verse, they leave Egypt. In the next verse, they're home.
How long do
Very
you think
short
the
trip.
journey would have been?
What was that?
How long do you think the journey would have been?
Well, we're told by the Exodus author that the journey from Canaan to Egypt was an 11-day journey.
Oh,
Not that far.
But we don't know if it's an 11-day journey with a small caravan of hardy young men, or an 11-day journey of a large caravan, including women and children and all sorts of other things that have to stop along the way.
But they're going downhill.
But it sounds very, it sounds very close.
Yes,
did they always go by land, not by sea?
the inland story always goes by land.
Hmm.
The coastal story can go by sea or can go by the water land route.
Thank you.
When Jonah wants to get away, he goes down to the port and gets on a boat.
Oh, well.
Well, eventually. So
Great fish.
how long is this? We know there's a famine in Egypt, and Abram goes down to the famine in Canaan as soon as Abraham arrives, and he goes down to Egypt. And again, we don't get any duration. There's a famine, and suddenly he's in Egypt. I guess their teleportation system was working better in those days.
At least for going back.
He,
Oh,
en-
wait a minute.
he entered the wormhole in Canaan and came out at the other end of the wormhole in Egypt. So verse 25, they go up from Egypt. Verse 26, they're now talking to Dad. In verse 25, they leave Egypt, they come to Canaan, and they end up at where Dad's house is. Verse 26, Vayagidu lo lemor, Od Yosef chai, V'chihu Moshel b'chol eretz Mitzrayim, Vayafag libo ki lo he'amin lahem. So Vayagidu lo, and they say to him. So now this is the brothers. Again, not a spokesperson, not Judah talking at this point, but all of them are talking. They tell lo to him, lemor, saying, Od Yosef chai, still Joseph lives. V'chi hu moshel b'chol eretz Mitzrayim, and for he is the ruler in all the land of Egypt.
What is Moshel?
Ruler.
Moshel rules. Memshelet is a government. So a melech malach, but a government moshels. So he's not the king of Egypt, he's just the ruler, the administrator in all the land of Egypt. Vayafag libo, and Jacob's heart faints. He has a mild heart attack. Or his mind, remember Leb in those days was as much the seat of thought as the seat of the blood flow, or probably more so. So his mind sort of blanks.
But
What is the Yafag?
He faints, he becomes very weak. His mind, we might say in English, his mind goes blank.
Mm-hmm.
He just stares at them in disbelief. Ki lo ha'amin lahem, because he did not believe to them.
Yeah.
He did not have belief in them. Bunch of brothers who have been lying to him for the last 30 years.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Hmm.
which are
So
the
they
words?
showed him a bloody cloak, all sorts of stuff.
Libo ki lo.
So vayafag libo, so his heart faints, his mind goes blank. Ki lo ha'amin lahem, for lo ha'amin does not believe lahem them, does not have belief in them, does not
Mhm.
find that they are believable. 27, Vayedabru elav et kol divrei Yosef, asher diber alehem, vayar et ha'agalot asher shalach Yosef, laset oto, vatachi ruach Yaakov avihem. So Vayedabru elav, so now they speak further to him, they speak to him, and they speak to him, Kol divrei Yosef, all the words of Joseph. And fortunately, we don't have those repeated to us again. Could have had in the story, they said to him all the words of Joseph, and these are the words that Joseph said to them. But we're spared that. At this point, the author probably said something like, to make a long story short, yelled out, too late for that. So they said to him, Kol divrei Yosef asher diber alehem, all the speakings of Joseph that Joseph spoke to them. So they now are going to retell the whole story as Joseph dictated to them.
Praise God's greatness.
And Vayar et Hagalot. So Vayar now is Jacob. And Jacob saw Ha'agalot, the wagons, the minivans, the SUVs. Asher Shalach Yosef, that Joseph sent. So he sees all of the stuff that they brought back up to Egypt with them and realizes something went on down in Egypt. And it's now harder to believe that Joseph didn't do it than to believe that Joseph isn't alive. So initially he couldn't believe that Joseph was still alive. Now he can't believe that this was done by anyone other than Joseph for his brothers. So it's all of the wagons, Ha'agalot asher shalach Yosef, all of the wagons that Joseph sent, laset oto, to carry him. And this is that same route that you had in the donkeys that were nosim and nosot.
Mm-hmm.
The carrying, the bearing, the schlepping.
What's the nun for up above when it say nos ot, as opposed to this?
Because the nun is actually part of the root, but the nun disappears in the infinitive because nun is a weak letter.
Oh, okay.
That's why when you get a nun on the dreidel, you don't get to do anything. It's a very weak letter. So laseit oto, to bear him, to schlep him. Vatechi ruach Yaakov avihem, and the spirit of Jacob, techi, came alive. Avihem, their father. So the spirit of an enlivening of the spirit of Yaakov, their father.
Tuchi is,
From the root chai.
lives the spirit. Okay.
Vatechi, and he enlivened, and he came alive. So his mind goes blank with disbelief, his heart faints, he has a little bit of a heart attack, and they show him all the wagons, and he perks up and says, wow, I feel so much better now. My spirit has gotten stronger.
Mm.
Vayomer Yisrael, and suddenly he's Yisrael. And Vayomer Yisrael, Rav Od Yosef Beni Chai, Eilcha ve'erenu v'terem amut. So Vayomer Yisrael says, Rav Od Yosef Beni Chai. Rav more, Od still, Yosef Beni, my son, Chai, lives.
Wow.
It's not
So,
enough already. My son lives.
not yet, not just Vayomer Yisrael Beni Chai. He's got to say Rav Od Yosef Beni Chai.
What's the Rav again? A lot?
Rav is a lot, more,
Yes.
many, muchness. So this is just, he's an expression of reinvigorating aliveness in himself, that Beni Chai, my son, is alive. And then he has to say Yosef Beni, as opposed to all the rest of those boys who are his Beni.
Mm-hmm.
And Od Yosef Beni, more, still Yosef Beni, and Rav, much thanks, muchnesses. Muchnesses, Yosef, my son, lives. Elcha, I will go. Ve'erenu, and I will see him. I will see him. I will go and I will see him. B'terem amut, before I die.
Isn't new mean we? Us?
New can mean we.
Mhm.
But here it's is I will see, and so we have a nominal suffix, and the only object of his seeing now is his son.
No, couldn't it be but it's not a reflexive, we will see each other.
No,
No.
no, that would be etra. That would be a itranu or some other kind of form of the verb.
Mm.
No, it's erenu because you can't really say ereho or erehu or ereav. Yes, normally the ending is just an o or an av or a hu, but the speaking erehu, erenu is a much easier way to say it. And b'terem is before something happens. And I don't know b'terem kol, before everything else. So amut is actually technically I will die. So we don't know if we want to read this as b'terem amut, before I will die, or having done that, then I can die.
Mhm.
So how soon after the seeing will be the dying, the B'Terem leaves it ambiguous. But the seeing will happen before the dying. And of course, he takes 4 more chapters to die.
It's nothing compared to Madame Butterfly.
Or Spike Jones' song about the opera.
That,
I love Spike Jones.
Yeah, you have to, if you haven't heard it, go YouTube Spike Jones going to the opera.
My favorite is I Went to Your Wedding.
All right. Yes.
so I have a question about the wagons, agalot. So I think that's the same word that's in the Kaddish. I've been studying the Kaddish lately with classes. And there's ba'agalah, bisman kariv.
Right, but the Kaddish is in Aramaic,
Yes.
and this is in Hebrew.
Ah. So it's not the same, it's not speedily because it's a wagon?
Well, the Aramaic, again, finding etymology of Hebrew or Aramaic, words, like the connection of berech and baruch and brecha, ni and blessing. And in fact, in last week's Torah portion, when the servant comes and meets Rivka, she waters the camels,
Mhm.
but the word for watering the camel is vayavrech gemalim. She kneeled the camels.
Mm.
For the camels to get to the water, they have to kneel down. And of course, camel knees are backwards.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Actually, what they're kneeling down on is their heel. They have a long foot. In any case, so yes, it could be ba'agalah, could be the wagon train will come quickly. But here the agalot are the wagons.
It's also interesting.
All right, next week, practicing for next week.
Hmm.
And notice next week, look at all that blue.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Wow.
my.
So if you wanted to actually follow what the why story was, after we just finished with, I will go down, I will see him, I will die, the next statement is the second half of verse 5, which says, Vayisa'u b'nei Yisrael et Yaakov avihem et tapam. So they are now, he said, let me go, let's go. And the next thing is, and they went. But meanwhile, we have all of the rest of the stuff that's connected to 2 chapters earlier, where we left off with Jacob sending his brothers back up. And this is where we're going to pick up Vayisai Yisrael. So now we're getting a different story of the story between Jacob and his sons about Joseph down in Egypt. So in order to get the continuity, you have to go way back to the last blue. But in any case, this is what you're reading for practice. And also, obviously, from verse 5, after the Mibe'er Shava, you have to jump to verse 6 to get the continuity of the story. And again, when you do that, you will notice that the other half of verse 5, you don't know it's missing if you didn't know it was there.
Mhm.
But this is the reading practice for next time. Vayisa Yisrael v'chol asher lo vayavo be'er shava vayizbach zvachim lelohei aviv Yitzchak. 2. Vayomer Elohim liyisrael b'marot halayla Vayomer Yaakov, Yaakov. Vayomer Hineni. 3. Vayomer Anochi Ha'el Elohei Avicha Al Tira Merda Mitzrayma Ki Lagoy Gadol Asimcha Sham. 4. Anochi Ered Imcha Mitzrayma Va'anochi A'alcha Gam Alo V'Yosef Yashit Yado Al Enecha. 5. Vayakom Yaakov mi Be'er Shava, and then interpolated from the previous story. Vayeseu B'nei Yisrael et Yaakov Avihem ve'et Tapam ve'et Neshehem ba'agalot asher shalach Paro laseit oto. Verse 6 continuing. Vayikchu et miknehem ve'et rechusham asher rachshu be'eretz Canaan vayavo'u Mitzrayma Yaakov v'chol zar'o ito. 7. Banav uvenei vanav ito benotav uvenot banav v'chol zar'o hevi o ito Mitzrayma. 8. Ve'ele shemot b'nei Yisrael haba'im Mitzrayma Yaakov uvanav b'chor Yaakov Reuven uvenei Reuven Chanoch ufal'u v'chetzron v'charmi. And now we'll get the names.
Wow.
So that's your work for next week. And notice as you're reading along, and we'll talk about next week, some of the parts of the blue story, the E story, that are only in the E story.
Mm-hmm.
And the implication of some of the statements in the E story that are not even necessary to be implied or explicitly stated in the Y story.
Mm.
So we'll talk about all that next week.
Interesting. Yep.